All right, welcome back to another episode of All Right, Shut Up. We got a special episode for you today. We're joined by NCAA college expert Jason Celeste.
That's right, we do.
Good to be back, boys. I tell you, it's the final day of March, but the madness just doesn't seem like it's quite over.
That's right. Madness continues into April this weekend. We got the Final Four college basketball. Game 64 and 65, I believe. 65, 66, excuse me. Been a
A
lot of
lot of
lot of
basketball.
basketball out there. A lot of crazy games. An 11th seed, UCLA, in the Final Four.
Who would have thunk it? I'll tell you what,
Zach,
all
what
the
do you
way
think about
from a
that?
play-in game to the Final Four, you don't see that very often. I believe Jason corrected me on the pre-podcast show. VCU, only other team to do that. Is that correct, Jason?
Indeed, 2011 team coached by Shaka Smart, new head coach of the Marquette Golden
Marquette, we didn't see
Eagles.
them in the tournament this year. What happened to Shaka and the Eagles?
Well, Shaka actually was in the tournament this year with the
Mm.
Texas Longhorns, but following his fall from grace against the Abilene Christian University Wildcats, I believe, he Texas two-stepped his way out of town and headed up
I'll
north
tell you
to
what, Texas is
Wisconsin.
famous for firing coaches
Oh, wow.
too
Big
early.
pickup for Wisconsin basketball.
This one might have been just about right, though. He had failed to meet expectations in several years prior to this, and then this was really the first season where he was meeting the expectations put on him by the administration, and then to just fall flat on your face in the first round of the NCAA tournament to another school from Texas that's probably comprised of mostly players from the state of Texas, and I'm guessing not a single one of them received a scholarship to the University of Texas. That's just not an acceptable loss, and I think he saw the writing on the wall that his time in Austin was coming to an end, so he jumped at the first opportunity to get out of there.
And so with Shaka Smart joining the Big East, is the Big East back, baby?
It depends on what you mean by back. If you mean, I mean, Shaka Smart had success at a mid-major school, getting like double-digit seeds and then pulling off upsets. But as in a big-name program, he didn't fare too well at Texas. So I would be hesitant to uh, get too excited about this
Mm.
hire at Marquette. Villanova will be back. This was a down year for them, but outside of Villanova, I don't see much promise in the Big
Not even,
East in the coming years.
yeah, not even from
I think it's
Georgetown,
pronounced
huh?
Georgetown, actually.
Georgetown had their fun. They made a nice little run there against an extremely weak conference, and then got absolutely destroyed in the first round of the tournament.
Patrick Ewing will be back. Patrick Ewing knows the tournament. He knows the game inside and out. And he knows the Big East tournament because he knows Madison Square Garden, baby. That's where
If
he blossomed.
if Patrick Ewing could go back 30 years and play, I might believe Georgetown's back. But there are definitely certain situations where top-notch players have failed as coaches, and I think Patrick Ewing is no exception to that rule.
One top-notch player who seems like he's succeeding in his coaching role, Juwan Howard of Michigan, took the Wolverines pretty far this year. What do you make of him as a coach?
Yeah. First player slash coach in NCAA tournament history to earn a one seed as a
Mm.
player and as a coach, and he's definitely got Michigan headed in the right direction. I like what I see out of him. He went into a tough situation in this tournament. Michigan, without their leading scorer, their star player Isaiah Livers, uh, I honestly thought due to that loss they were going to lose in the second round to LSU, but stayed strong, took them all the way to the Elite Eight, had several very nice looks at the basket, 1 3-point shot away from a Final Four, and the shots just didn't fall. And like he was close. He was close to a Final Four, and I think the good things are just beginning at Michigan.
I would agree with you there, Jason.
Yeah, it seems like he's got them going the right way. But got to give credit to this UCLA team. It's kind of strange to see UCLA as an 11 seed, such a storied program, in a different situation, and then overcomes it, making it all the way to the Final Four.
I mean, it was
What do you
crazy.
think about
They
that,
even
Zack?
beat Michigan State, a very storied program. Jason was big on Tom Izzo, convinced me that they might make a run. But, if you were one of those guys who picked, UCLA, Michigan State to do the upset because two very storied programs in a playing game, you don't see that very often. So, pretty cool to see that they've made it this far. I think they were clearly a little bit underseeded, but they're going to have a tough matchup this weekend against the Gonzaga Zags. I think everyone's pretty high on the Zags for a good reason. They're a powerhouse out there, and it's going to be hard for UCLA. I think they're stopping dancing on Saturday. I think the Zags take it handily.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what. I don't think anyone's
Jason, any
higher on
thoughts on
Higher
the
on
Zags
Gonzaga
UCLA
right now
matchup?
than Las Vegas, who has the Bulldogs as a 14-point favorite. Yep, a 14-point favorite to beat UCLA in the Final Four, which is absolutely unheard of at this stage in the tournament. However, it's interesting to note that you look at the top two teams in the country throughout all these upsets, all the craziness that's happened this March. Actually, going into the Elite Eight, it was the highest average seed per team in the history of the Elite Eight. But the number 1 and 2 teams in the country, Gonzaga and Baylor, have mowed down their competition. And an interesting betting nugget there, Gonzaga is covered in every game of this tournament, despite generally being favored by double-digit points. The only game that Baylor has not covered in was their opening round matchup against Hartford, which they won by 24. So you look at the upsets and all this, but at the end of the day, it seems like the cream's sort of rising to the top, and Gonzaga and Baylor have definitely separated themselves, as they have done all season, as the best two teams in the country.
Sure. I buy that. What everything you're saying makes sense, but if I'm a betting man, 14 points is a huge spread. I mean, I'm tempted to take that this late in the tournament.
In my opinion, that's one that I'm not going to touch. It's Mick Cronin's defense is very solid. I think let's let's put this out there first. No one's holding Gonzaga to under 70 points. It hasn't been done all season. It's not going to happen today. It's not going to happen on Saturday, even though UCLA's defense is clicking under a very well-renowned defensive coach in Mick Cronin. However, the question is, how many points is UCLA going to score? They won that game against Michigan, scoring 51 points. That's just not going to happen against Gonzaga. They score 51 against Gonzaga, and they're going to lose by at least 20 points. So can Mick Cronin's team at least get into the 60s and keep this game close? I don't think they're going to win. If they can get into the 60s, I think they'll cover the spread. But there's a chance they don't get into the 60s, and Gonzaga wins this game something like 75-55.
Yeah, I'm looking at UCLA's scores in the tournament. They're not scoring at a crazy rate. See, they had 88 points in 2 wins ago, but it was in overtime. 67, and this is against lower competition. 73. I mean, they're going to have to get really hot to keep up with the competition here.
Hmm.
But there's one team that one of us at least picked to win this whole damn thing. that isn't Baylor or Gonzaga. And it's the Houston
Mm-hmm.
Cougars, baby. I think they still got a chance. A lot of Texas in this Final Four. Didn't really realize till now. But yeah, Houston basketball making a run. I like this team. I like this Houston team. Whooped up on or got past Oregon State here, looking confident in the Final Four. They're gonna have their hands full with Baylor, but I could see them pulling off the upset.
I'll tell you what, Houston, if they can get hot on
Yeah,
a
I think
three, they can
Houston
be
pulling off the
dangerous.
upset against Baylor is a lot more likely than Houston can be dangerous if they get hot from three, but so can Baylor. And Baylor's three-headed monster at the guard position, I think it's just going to be a little bit too much for Houston to handle. I think Houston is capable of pulling off this upset. Kelvin Sampson's definitely done a great job with that program and gotten them to a point where I think they're going to be perennial Final Four contenders, which is tough to do from a mid-major conference. But Houston's starting to look like a miniature version of Gonzaga, where they might play in a mid-major, but they're anything but. I think Baylor takes it this time, but I think Houston's here to stay. I just like the three-headed monster. Davion Mitchell is the best defensive player in the country, and he's going to have a tough assignment with Quentin Grimes, but I think he's going to be able to at least limit Grimes' scoring, and if Grimes isn't scoring, I don't think Houston has enough scoring outside of him to get past Baylor. Maceo Teague is an absolute baller from Cincinnati, by the way, so obviously the guy's going to ball out. And Jared Butler, a first-team All-American. This team is, if there's any team that is built to compete with Gonzaga, it's the Baylor Bears.
Man, that's going to be a hell of a championship game, huh? I mean, we got two teams. It looks like UCLA is not going to make it. They kind of somehow stumbled their way here. Houston might get the upset, but if we have this Baylor Gonzaga matchup, it could be a championship game for the ages.
I'll tell you what, that's going to be quite the shootout. The Baylor and Gonzaga matchup. Two high-powered offenses going at it against each other. I personally like Baylor in that matchup. I think Baylor's a little more tenured, a little more big and long compared to the Gonzaga Zags, and I think they take that one. But I'm still big on Houston. I think Houston's going to upset Baylor and unfortunately lose to Gonzaga in the finals. But if it's a Baylor-Gonzaga finals, I got Baylor. Like you said, I think UCLA is kind of out of it. But it's going to be a high-powered game if you're correct in saying Gonzaga versus Baylor. Look for a high-scoring game, maybe in the 80s for both teams.
Yeah, I think Baylor versus Gonzaga is the matchup we all want to see. It's the matchup the world deserves, and finally getting back to somewhat normalcy of college sports. Baylor versus Gonzaga would be an absolutely fantastic way to end this college basketball season. They've been the two best teams in the country all year long, and I think that would be one of the best championship games we've seen in recent memory. If that game is to occur, I want you to keep an eye on one name as the X factor as to who gets the W, and that's Andrew Nembhard, guard for Gonzaga, 2-year starter at point guard for Florida, transferred up the West Coast. He's going to have to step up his game a little bit in this one because, as I said, Baylor has the best backcourt in the country with those three guys. Davion Mitchell against Jalen Suggs, Gonzaga's star point guard, likely top 5 pick in the NBA draft. No one's going to shut down Jalen Suggs completely. Davion Mitchell is going to limit what Jalen Suggs can do, though, and he's going to force the ball into somebody else's hand and force somebody else to make plays. And Nembhard's going to be the guy that's going to have to step up. If he can do so, I think the Zags get the win. If he struggles, I think it might be a good night for Baylor.
It's going to be a hell of a championship game. Yeah. So, as a unbiased fan, I'm not sure who to root for, really. If I'm rooting for history for a perfect season from Gonzaga, or if I should root for the upset. I'm a little bit torn. Zach, who are you going to be rooting for if that's the matchup we get?
I'll tell you what, I'm always a fan of the underdog. So I guess technically the underdog here would be the Baylor Bears. Would you agree with that, Jason?
Yeah, I think going based off what I've seen from what Vegas has released in line so far, my guess is Baylor would be somewhere around a 5
So,
point
I mean,
underdog
in that
against
case,
Gonzaga.
I'm shooting for the Baylor Bears. Everyone this year has been hot on Gonzaga, with the perfect season, everything like that, being the team to beat. Um, Although Baylor's not really an underdog, they're also a 1 seed. I'd like to see the Bears take it home. I think I like to bet against Vegas, and I always bet on the underdog when I'm betting on the sports book. So either way, if it's Baylor or it's Houston, I'm going to be betting on one of those squads to take it home and cut down those nets.
How would you say that strategy has worked for you
I
financially?
would say this. I believe this tournament I'm down $20, so not too horribly, but definitely not great. I've been too into the parlays. I try to get all these parlays
Okay.
set up, and Jason's warned me, don't get on the parlays. That's how Vegas makes their money, and I'm starting to think he's right because I've been losing every single one by like one game. I'll hit like four of them, and I'll lose the fifth. Etc. So it's very frustrating when you hit all of them except one too, because you're like so close to that sweetness. I did have a lot of fun.
But
I
did you
mean,
have fun?
a lot of times I don't even watch the games. I just check the next morning. It's kind of like a fun morning routine for me. I'll,
That's fantastic. Jason, have you been betting on the games at all?
Yeah, I've had a couple of heartbreaks on betting spreads and teams for no apparent reason, jacking up, running down the court and jacking up shots the last second to cover a spread. Most recently, uh, the gentleman for Oregon State, for whatever reason, I guess he felt that losing by 6 looked a lot better in the box score than losing by 9. So he sprints down the court, jacks up a contested three that had no business going in, and just buries it. And then they just there was about 3 seconds left after that, and they didn't even bother fouling. So really, there was no point in him taking the shot to begin with. You lost. Like, just take your loss. And because he couldn't take his loss with dignity, I ended up losing because Houston was an
those are the kind
8 point
of things
favorite to
that
win
make
that
you
game.
think, maybe it is a little rigged.
It must be a popular player.
I'll tell you what, though, I came back strong with betting on Gonzaga to cover the spread once again. I've won a lot of money on Gonzaga covering the spread because it seems like Gonzaga is one of those teams that's familiar with what the spread is, and they're like, all right, we're gonna win by at least this much. And then Mick Cronin's squad got me a solid payday, plus 260 to win, and they hung on. So that was a nice
Wow.
win for me and my bank account.
Solid work, solid work. That plus a tax
Yeah.
return.
Well,
I
that's where
mean,
all
we're
mine
set
went
30,
to.
boys.
Who could ask for anything more?
What about you, Alex? You gonna put some money on these Final Four games? Where do you like the bets this weekend?
Boy, well, uh, I'm going to have to bet that Houston wins because I want to. If Jason, I can't believe what you're telling me is correct, that I can actually win this bracket.
Yeah,
I mean,
I was
I feel
surprised
like,
as well because you're pretty like not just in last place. You're in last
oh,
place by a significant margin right now.
I've seen the points. I'm significantly worse than everyone.
Mm.
Um,
But
but
I'm
my max points are 950,
yeah,
and
because
everyone else has 1,000 points already.
that can't be possible because but you're the only one who picked Houston to win the championship. So if you get Houston to win in the Final Four plus Houston in the championship game, you'll that'll put you just fraction in front of Dobbins for first.
Okay, okay. I'll
Uh,
take your
what
word for it.
Yeah, what do you guys say we talk a little bit these trades that happened last week?
Oh boy, let's get into it.
I'll tell you what, man. San Francisco 49ers, they did what a team with a roster ready to compete that's just short, a quarterback shy of true contention would do. They hemorrhaged their draft capital in the future to move up in a very rich quarterback class to get their guy.
It is.
It is a rich quarterback class. I mean, who do you see them getting at 3?
So I think it's interesting because the narrative sort of shifted. The second they made that trade, like you were thinking, well, is it Justin Fields? Is he the third quarterback to go off the board? But rumors started to come out like initially that they were thinking it looked more like Trey Lance. However, what I've been hearing recently is that the San Francisco 49ers, if I had to make a bet right now, the number 3 overall pick in the draft is going to be Mac Jones.
Wow, a lot of buzz around him, huh?
Oh, the buzz is growing by the day for Mac Jones. Put on a solid display at his pro day, and I, before the season, he wasn't even a draftable prospect. After the season, people were saying maybe like beginning of the second round, maybe sneaks into the end of the first round. Mac Jones is going in the top 5. Like, he's not making it past the 5th pick in the draft. At this point, I believe he'll be the 3rd pick, but there's going to be at least 4 quarterbacks taken in the top 5. The first 5 picks might all be quarterbacks this year. I guarantee you that there will be 5 quarterbacks in the top 9.
So you see Cincinnati trading back because
For
they
the
won't take a quarterback.
We'll see how the board falls. I look at 8 and 9, Carolina and Denver, as teams that absolutely are going to want to trade up for a quarterback. I look at 15 with New England as a team that might be targeting a trade up. Apparently, the Bengals actually, not sure how substantial these talks have been, but New England has reached out to Cincinnati at number 5 in regards to what
Wow.
it would take to get that pick.
That
They
makes
need.
sense.
No, I was just gonna say New
Sorry, Troy,
England
go
needs
ahead.
to rebuild. They need to draft a quarterback. So I can see Cincinnati giving up that pick. I'm sure New England's willing to wheel and deal a little bit. They're kind of reeling from losing Brady. So what do you think Cincinnati would have to take for that, Jason?
I think it's going to take a lot because there are 2 prospects I'm hearing the Bengals really like at 5. And that's Penei Sewell, the offensive tackle from Oregon, and then Joe Burrow's old college buddy,
Be a nice
Jamar
connection
Chase, the
for him.
wide receiver from LSU. Both of those players are likely to be on the board at 5. There's not a chance in the world either of those players to be on the board at 15. So the Bengals are going to have to give up on both of those guys if they trade down with New England. So New England's going to have to make it worth their time to give up those players. So I think you saw San Francisco to trade up from 12 to 3. Uh, also gave up their first round picks next year and the year after that, as well as a 3rd round pick next year. I think you're going to have to look at a similar package from New England if they want to move from 15 to 5.
Jamar Chase had his pro day today. I don't know if you guys watched it or looked at it. I believe he ran a
4.38.
Wow.
yeah, his stats were crazy. Like he had under 4-second shuttle.
Yeah,
He had
41 inch
4.38.
vertical.
Like he had insane testing numbers. So like this guy is no joke. Um, and I see like with a great testing day like this, he's going to shoot up the boards, like you said. Um, and
Yeah,
and if what you're saying is true about all these quarterbacks heavy in the top 5, he could be one of the first like position players, if you will, taken.
I'd also like to talk a little bit about Philadelphia deciding to move down from 6 to 12. It's interesting because I think at this point you can lock in. Obviously, Trevor
Mm-hmm.
Lawrence has been locked in as the number 1 pick since before the season started. Uh, at this point, I think you can go. There had been some talk like, are the Jets maybe going to stick with Sam Darnold and take an offensive tackle or a wide receiver to help him out? Are they going to trade down and get some more picks? At this point, I think you can go ahead and lock in the New York Jets drafting Zach
Wow.
Wilson at number 2. Philadelphia was interested, and obviously the Dolphins and Eagles had lots of talks before this San Francisco-Miami trade ever occurred. And the Eagles were looking to move up to number 3, but they only wanted for a quarterback, but they only wanted Zach Wilson. From what they heard, Zach Wilson wasn't going to be available at number 3, which is why they ultimately moved down to 12 instead of trying to move up. So that tells me you can go ahead and lock in Zach Wilson as the number 2 pick in the draft.
Yeah, when you were hyping up a quarterback earlier, I thought you were going to refer to
Mm-hmm.
Zach Wilson because it seems like his status as a NFL quarterback has just shot up
Yeah.
in the last few months. Him going number 2, wow.
Well, where do
Crazy.
you
Zach,
think
take
that
it away.
Justin Fields drops from this, Jason? Where do you find him dropping to? Because he was kind of thought as the number 2 guy for a long time. But it seems like recently his stock has dropped a little bit.
Boy. Yeah, it certainly had. He had been the number 2 guy, and I don't think, obviously, he struggled a little bit in a couple games this year, which caused some teams to have a little pause concerning him. I think his stock fell more in regards not to him falling as much as it was to other quarterbacks rising. Teams really love Zach Wilson. San Francisco had actually reached out to the Jets as well at number 2. I think they were interested in Zach Wilson as well. However, the Jets didn't even entertain a phone call with the 49ers, which tells me San Francisco was interested in taking Zach Wilson, and Mac Jones might be their second choice. So I think that Justin Fields falling past Zach Wilson has more to do with how much teams like Zach Wilson than it does teams not so much caring for Justin Fields. Talk about lighting up a pro day, though. Justin Fields in Ohio State's pro day was yesterday, and from everything I'm hearing, he absolutely tore it up. Set Twitter on fire with his performance. Ran a 4.4440, which is insane for a quarterback. As of right now, man, it's hard to ignore sitting at 4 the Atlanta Falcons not pulling the trigger on their hometown guy. They have a bit of a tricky cap situation with Matt Ryan. Basically, he's going to be on the Atlanta Falcons roster for the next 2 seasons. Financially, it would be almost impossible for them to not have him on the roster for the next 2 seasons due to his contract situation. So it's kind of interesting. Fields would definitely sit for a year behind Matt Ryan, and then Atlanta would have to figure out something that second year because they can't have the number 4 pick in the draft sit 2 years. That's just a Green Bay Packers type move, except even 22 picks earlier in the draft, which is just absurd. So I think there's going to be a race. Like, who do the Falcons like more, Justin Fields or Trey Lance at number 4? Right now, my money would be on Fields. He's the hometown guy from the Atlanta area. He makes a lot of sense there. But if the Falcons were to pass on Fields at number 4 and take Trey Lance, I think the phones would start lighting up in Cincinnati for that 5th pick.
It's going to be a lot to watch for. We're going to have to
what do you think
have a
Miami
draft
would do? Just take the
extravaganza.
best player or stick with Tua? I mean,
yeah, no. What Miami's moves tell me is they did not want to fall out of the top 10. Like, they had a player that they were targeting at 3. They felt comfortable they could get at 6, but they did not want to risk losing. So there's somebody on Miami's board that they want, and that's why they, instead of just trading back from 3 to 12 and getting that capital, they traded a little bit of that capital back to move back up to 6, because there's somebody they want at 6 that they know isn't going to be there at 12, but they felt comfortable enough that he'd be there at 6. And in my opinion, because what Miami's saying is they don't think the Bengals are going to take their player because they didn't need a quarterback, and the only other team in between 3 and 6 is Atlanta, who's probably going to take a quarterback. The Bengals right now, I don't think they know who they're going to take between Jamar Chase and Penei Sewell, which tells me Miami did not want Jamar Chase or Penei Sewell. Otherwise, they wouldn't have risked that, giving them up, and the Bengals taking them. I think Miami, there are two names that stick out to me: Kyle Pitts and Devontae Smith.
Man, yeah. Kyle Pitts is. Some people are saying he's going to be top 5. Crazy tight end there. One weird team in the top 10. The Detroit Lions. I mean, I don't know what to make of this Detroit team. Obviously, they're starting over. Stafford is gone. Jared Goff is in. I'm assuming that means they'll leave the quarterback situation alone. But, I mean, Goff has had success, but McVay was not hot on him at the end of last year. And, yeah, he's been pretty average. So I could see them wanting to upgrade their QB position, but if 4 quarterbacks are already gone, then that's no use.
Yeah. I'll tell you this, the Lions might want to upgrade their quarterback position, but do not look for him to do it this year. There are way too many other holes on the roster. They're going to give Goff at least 1 year to prove himself. And I think at number 7, with some elite wide receivers on the board, that's where Detroit's going to go.
Troy, who's Pittsburgh taking 24?
I've seen a lot of interesting things about the Steelers this year. I've heard them maybe trading up for a quarterback to get somebody kind of like Justin Fields. I've heard maybe they trade for Sam Darnold of the Jets. So obviously quarterbacks on top of mind. A lot of Pittsburgh fans right now, with Big Ben going to be gone next year and, not finishing out the season great last year. But I think ultimately they're probably going to take an offensive tackle. I'm not sure who yet, so they'll have to see who drops to them. But their ultimate need right now is offensive line. So I see them taking a tackle probably first round.
Yeah, I like where your mind's headed, Troy. Sam Darnold, I think there are 3 teams I have pinpointed as players in his trade market, and that's Washington, Pittsburgh, and Chicago. I think one of those teams is going to end up with Sam Darnold next year, and I absolutely believe. I've heard some rumors about Pittsburgh wanting a running back. I just don't think that's their biggest need, especially when you need to retool that entire offensive line. Who's going to block for that running back? I had in my original draft the Steelers targeting Jalen Mayfield out of Michigan, an offensive tackle. However, I'm starting to really like the buzz I'm hearing from the top-ranked interior lineman prospect, Creed Humphrey, center from Oklahoma. Would be an excellent replacement for Pouncey at that center position. And as of right now, if I had to guess, I'd say that's
I could see that as well. They like that center position kind of as a leader.
I mean, that's the perfect spot. Yeah, that's the perfect spot in the draft to get a really good interior lineman, sort of the end of the first round. So there'll be someone really good waiting for the Steelers to call them.
Yeah, Alex, so where do you like your Packers going in the draft?
Boy, what are they, 29, right?
29.
Yeah. Whoever's left, dude. I mean, you never know how to call it at the end of the first round because, trades and team needs, you never know, like, who's left because whenever you look at this draft rankings and stuff, there's always, like, 15 or 20, like, maybe 20 is even a stretch, like 15 guys that are really, really good, And then there's kind of a second class. And then, so we'll see, like, it's kind of like this. Here are the top players, and then here are the rest. And they're sort of where they're picking. It's going to be one of the rest guys. So I don't know. We'll just see who's there. See how the draft shakes out. They need an offensive tackle. I mean, who doesn't, right? They re-signed Kevin King. Big move. I personally liked it. Because why not just pay one guy for 1 year? I'm sure he's better than a rookie, Yeah, they need an O lineman, and They need a wide receiver, not because the wide receivers are bad, but because all the wide receivers are in the same year. So all their contracts are going to be up at the same
That's
time, except
brutal.
for Adams. So unless they give 4 guys a new contract, a second contract, a second more expensive contract, they're going to be really screwed.
I'll tell you who I really like for the Packers, and it's hitting at that wide receiver position. All of your wide receivers seem to be along the same build, like bigger
They are.
body, like 6'4", 6'5" guys, more outside, like down the field receivers. I'm looking at an absolute gift of a gadget player, and Kadarius Toney out of Florida can line up in the slot, can line up at running back, can do a lot of things. Similar to a Percy Harvin type of player, and I think that might be with paired with Aaron Rodgers. I think that could be a very useful tool for the Green Bay Packers going forward.
Jason, I couldn't agree more. We have the same guys kind of playing. So we have Adams playing out of the slot, and he's kind of the quick
Yep, and even
change of direction guy.
and even Adams,
And
he's like 6'3" and like 215. Like he's not your prototypical slot receiver.
exactly. And the other guys are the same build, like you said, big, tall, kind of slow guys that are great blockers, but they're not quick change of direction guys. We need a guy like Randall Cobb, man. Randall Cobb was great for us. We need a quick, short guy. I'm totally for someone of that kind of prototype.
Yeah, the only problem with that is, like you said, at 29, it takes more of an adjustment. Like especially if you look at the teams right ahead of you on the board, if your target is wide receiver, you've got the Saints at 28 need a wide receiver. The Ravens at 27 need a wide receiver. The Browns at 26 need a wide receiver. So there are multiple spots right ahead of you where you might see a team scoop your guy up.
I saw the Ravens just signed,
Yeah.
what's his name, Sammy Watkins.
Yeah,
That's a pretty big move.
1 year deal for an injury prone player though. Watkins can play when healthy, but I certainly don't think the Ravens are putting all their eggs in the Sammy Watkins basket.
Well, we're all gonna have to see how it shakes out. We're gonna have to have a draft extravaganza episode where we dive in deep to these picks, Jason.
I'll tell you what, Troy, I'm looking forward to it. Nobody loves the draft more than me. Well, except for maybe
I
Mel
think you might
Kiper
rival
Jr.,
Mel
but
Kiper.
I'll tell you what, man. A lot of upside. A lot of upside.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of draft content, so get ready, fans. We'll be doing mock draft and the big night. Get ready. We'll do a live stream. It'll be a ton of fun. So book it in your calendars,
All
folks.
right, that's been everything for us today. Shut up.
All right. See you later.